Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Have you ever dealt with procrastination, perfectionism? Have you ever felt like your nature journaling wasn't good enough, or you kept avoiding going on the nature journaling field trips, or you thought that you had to get a new sketchbook before you could start nature journaling, or you needed to have like a special day or a special place to go to before you would start? All of those things has happened to me also. And those are all mindset issues. So even if you have the perfect watercolor kit, the perfect location, and just the right paper for nature journaling, if your mindset gets in the way, nothing else is going to help you. Look at this beautiful location here. This is an estuary in Sonoma County, north of the San Francisco Bay. I went here one time recently with the intention of nature journaling, and everything was perfect for nature journaling, but I kept doubting myself and wondering if I should do a landscapeito or if I should walk around and look for more birds. I was also with another person at that time who didn't nature journal, so I was a little bit self-conscious and not sure if they would want to wait for me while I sat around nature journaling. So all of these issues and mindset dilemmas that I'm going to talk about today are things that I've dealt with personally, and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out some solutions. So hopefully these will help you out today. And we're going to go on a little journey together, and it's not going to be easy. There will definitely be some dangers lurking in the shadows, and I think the light at the end of the tunnel is worth it though. So are you willing to give up a little bit of comfort and to dive into this topic with me? I will do my best to help you, but you are the only one that can do the actual work. So let's dive into this. Make sure you have a piece of paper or preferably your nature journal on hand for this because we're going to do some activities. All right. So here is a picture over someone's shoulder as they're nature journaling at a carnivorous plant nursery. So let's take a moment right now and write down what goes on inside of your head when you're nature journaling. What do you feel when you first open up your sketchbook to start? Go ahead and write a couple sentences down about that. You can pause this video and give yourself about 3 minutes to write down some of the things that you feel when you're nature journaling. What is your experience like? Okay, now that you paused the video and gave yourself a few minutes to write that down, let's go on to the next thing. What are some of the thoughts that go through your head when you decide to stop nature journaling? Do you ever stop before you want to? Have you ever felt like you were giving up or not trying something that you wish you could? Go ahead and take a couple minutes, pause the video, and write down what thoughts are going through your head when you decide to stop nature journaling. How do you feel when you stop? All right, now that you've written down those things and give yourself a moment to reflect on that, let's go to the last one. Have you ever wanted to practice at home more? Have you bought books about nature journaling but not done the exercises? Did you criticize yourself for not having enough self-discipline? Those are all yes or no questions. So, have you wanted to practice more? Have you bought books about nature journaling but not done the exercises? And how did you feel about yourself? Did you criticize yourself for not having enough self-discipline? Go ahead and write down those answers. And then last of all for this slide, what do you feel when someone else looks over your shoulder while you're sketching or nature journaling? Write down a few of the things that you feel when someone else looks over your shoulder. All right, now that you gave yourself a minute and paused the video to write those things down, let's go to the next page. And it is possible to follow through this presentation without doing the written exercises, but I really recommend this presentation is designed to have these written exercises built into it. So if you find yourself not wanting to do the written exercises, that could be a mindset issue. Okay, so has anyone ever asked you why you nature journal? Have you asked yourself? Take a minute right now and write down what you actually want to get from your nature journaling. What is the feeling that you want? What is the goal that you have? What got you into it? Why do you nature journal? Give yourself a few minutes to write that down. I'm going to drink some hot chocolate. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, what will happen if you don't achieve what you want? Is your goal in nature journaling something that if you don't achieve it, what will happen? So have you ever experienced sadness, disappointment, inaction? You felt like your pages sucked, or you had unmet expectation, you received criticism? Have you ever been rejected by your friends and family because of something that happened in your nature journaling? Have you ever torn out pages or thrown away whole sketchbooks, cried, or given up altogether? Most of us haven't really experienced any major setbacks or pain or loss of limb or illness or anything from nature journaling. So sometimes it's good to just reflect on what is actually at risk. What is the worst thing that could happen if you took some risks while nature journaling? If you tried something that you were afraid of, or if you went to a nature journaling group, or if you shared your pages on the Facebook Nature Journal Club page, what's the worst thing that could happen? So, why are we focusing on mindset today? I could have made this presentation all about watercolor techniques, and that would be really comfortable for all of us. It would be easier for me to talk about, and it would be easier for you to listen to. But the reason why I did this presentation, and it will probably get fewer views than if I did a presentation just about watercolor, is because I think this is actually way more important. I think that by developing some of your mindset tools, you will be much more likely to achieve your nature journaling goals than if you have the perfect watercolor kit, all of the technical skills that you need, and all of those things. So there was a study done recently that showed, what factors go into you achieving your nature journaling goals and performing at a high level. So as you can see from this chart, skills and training is an important part. That green slice of pie is about 11%. So skills and training and practice definitely make a difference. The subject matter matters a little bit. So, choosing an interesting place to go nature journaling does matter some, but it's still not that big. And materials or gear, your art supplies, they make a small difference, but they're not that great. And you can see the blue area there, 83% is your mindset. As you can see, this is somewhat of a joke, and it's based on really hard science. Even caffeine level has more effect than what nature journal supplies or art supplies you have. So, if mindset makes such a big difference, why? What are the things that can go wrong? What's the big deal with mindset? Well, what are the things that actually stand in the way of you meeting your nature journal goals? What do you think the problems are? What issues have you dealt with as far as mindset obstacles? Go ahead and write a few of them down. They don't have to be complete sentences, but what are the problems? What stands in between you and your nature journaling goals? Go ahead and pause the video and give yourself some time to write down what you think are the things getting in the way of you meeting your nature journaling goals. Okay, now once you've written those things down, look through what you wrote and tell me if you see any of these words. Do you see anything where you wrote once I dot dot dot, if only I could dot dot dot, when I get a dot dot dot, or I wish I? Those are all limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs are beliefs that take the responsibility away from trying something and instead put the responsibility on a future occurrence that, or a dependent occurrence that we have no control over. So for example, or that might be in the future. Some people say, once my kids move out of the house, then I'll finally take up nature journaling or painting. So By saying that, they're creating a limiting belief, and I'm not discrediting the fact that people have important responsibilities, but it's very possible that we're creating these limiting beliefs as a way to avoid doing something that would actually be very fulfilling and satisfying for us. Sometimes we say, if I had the right watercolor palette, I would nature journal more. Or when I move to a different city where there's other nature journalers, I will nature journal more. So all of those things can be tricks that our brain uses that plays on us to keep us from trying things. Now scan through the things you wrote down and see if you have any place written I'm bad at, or I'm not good at, or I have dot dot dot, I'm never this, or I always. All of those phrases or sentence fragments are also a type of limiting belief, and they don't leave any room for growth. So those are based on the fixed mindset, and we're gonna deal with all of these problems in the future. So one of the first things is to kind of look at what we think is standing in the way of our nature journaling goals, write them down, and then take responsibility for them, because we're focusing today on the things that we have control over, not the things that we don't have control over. And the more we take responsibility for all of these things that get in the way of us achieving what we want from our nature journaling, the more we'll be able to develop strategies to surpass them. So, here are some of the different problems that I wrote down, the things that get in the way of my own nature journaling: lack of energy, excuses, overwhelm, lack of time, other responsibilities, fear of failure, procrastination, indecision, avoidance. These are a whole bunch of different issues. But a lot of times I think this is my problem, that I just need to buy a new pencil, or I need a more interesting subject. So as you can see, buying a new pencil or getting a more interesting subject are both ways to take the responsibility off of myself and instead focus on an external thing such as buying a new art supply. And these aren't actually ways that we get better. These are ways that we sort of avoid dealing with problems. So we shift our focus to external problems, and we can create huge stories around these obstacles that have built up over years and that we really believe. So this becomes difficult to parse through all of this and figure out what is really going on. So let's just review our situation right now. Let me see if I can get this straight. We love nature journaling, and we probably have some lofty goals around it. Our happiness and in some cases our sanity might be at stake, especially during times like we're in right now. Having nature journaling as a pastime can really bring you a lot of calm and peace and connection to nature and tranquility. But we have all of these interconnected obstacles gnawing away at our confidence and blocking us from what we want. Many of these obstacles are actually invisible to us because, like I said, some of these stories that we've told ourselves over the years have built up and we really start to believe them. So this is a tricky problem. We need some serious help. And I think the first thing we have to do is this is a tangled mess. We have to try to sort this out. It's a thorny, tangled mess, and we need to look for the root problems. So I spent months developing this presentation, and I created this whole list of problems, and I got a lot of ideas from other people, suggestions of issues they've dealt with. Some of these have been things such as lack of skill, avoidance of certain subjects, negative self-talk, comparison, dependence on praise, sensitivity of feedback. But the more I looked at it, the more it seemed like these actually all come from one root problem. They stem from a root problem that we're going to call outcome dependence. So outcome dependence is when you do something with a goal or an expectation of what the product is going to be, what the outcome, the fruit of your labor is going to be. So focusing on the fruit of your labor. Another root problem is lack of intentionality. So if you trace the outcome dependence, you can get down to this lack of intentionality. Like when we're asked by others, we think we know why we are nature journaling, but we often have hidden goals, assumptions, and expectations. And these are usually less lofty sounding than the goals that we tell others and ourselves. And they often have to do with the aesthetic quality of our pages, our skill level, or our technical ability, and all of that. And don't worry, you're not alone with this. It's natural, a natural human tendency, and many of these things are unconscious. We do care what people think about the quality of our pages or the aesthetic beauty. And if we want to overcome this and kind of understand what's going on better, we have to daylight these unspoken or hidden expectations and bring them up into consciousness where we can be intentional about them. So becoming more intentional is one of the main ways we're going to deal with build a stronger mindset for nature journaling. And the brain in some ways is like a black box. There's a lot of stuff going on in your brain that you don't really have full access to, and we're not always really sure about the motives and the things that are driving us and making us feel the way we do. And the best way to start opening up this black box is to develop self-awareness. And this will help in a lot of things, but it will definitely help in your nature journaling. And we're really lucky that nature journaling has a lot of self-awareness tools already built into it that help us develop and employ this essential meta skill. You've probably heard John Muir Laws talk about self-awareness or metacognition. So there's still more problems. We haven't dealt with all of them yet. So some more from the list include procrastination, paralysis by analysis, perfectionisms, rationalizations, imposter syndrome. But when I looked at these, I found that they all trace back to a root cause. Outcome dependence. Well, we know how to deal with that one, right? Yep, self-awareness. So once again, a lot of these problems are boiling down to this outcome dependence, and how can we treat that? Self-awareness. So I could have made a whole week-long lecture to deal with procrastination separately, to deal with paralysis by analysis, perfectionism, fear of criticism, all of those things. I could have built strategies to deal with those. But what I found is there's actually some panaceas. There's some cures that will help all of these problems, especially if we treat the root causes. And I spent a lot of time trying to narrow this down and looking at them individually. But today we're going to focus on these root problems, and this will really empower you in your nature journaling. And I think this one subject matter can make the biggest difference in your nature journaling. So let's look at the 5 keys that I think are the cure-alls that will help all of your mindset issues. So these are the 5 keys that I narrowed it down to: self-awareness, intentionality, feedback loops, fuel, and focus on practice. I'm going to go into each one of these more in depth, but you might want to write these 5 down because these are the 5 ways that we're going to treat all of the mindset issues. Self-awareness. This is one of the most powerful human thinking and feeling tools. And self-awareness it's huge. It's such an important topic. But how can we develop it? And what is the one tool known to humankind that is the most powerful technology for developing self-awareness? It's definitely not a cell phone, okay? Guess what it is? It's the journal. So have you ever nature journaled yourself? As nature journalers, we have this like curiosity, and we have all of these questions that we ask when we go out into nature, and we apply all of those tools to the natural world. But have you ever turned those around and pointed them at yourself? Because the journal, that thing that you probably have in your hands right now or is somewhere near to you, that is the most powerful tool for developing self-awareness. So let's turn that tool around and point it at ourselves. Oh, we're pointing the nature journaling lens at me while I'm nature journaling. That's so meta. So have you ever taken your nature journaling lens and turned it around and pointed it at yourself? You know, about 100 years ago, scientists thought that they were these objective observers, and they could go all around the world looking at things and observing things and writing about things, and they thought they were being objective. Well, it turns out we have realized that today we've realized that that's not true. There's no real objectivity. That when you go out and look at things in the world, you're applying your biases, your own filters. So when we're nature journaling, it's the same. You're not an objective scientist when you're out there nature journaling. Your biases, your perspectives, your language, your cultural upbringing, all of those things affect how you see the natural world. So we might as well include ourselves in that. And that's the only way we can strive towards being more open or objective or fair or balanced or whatever you want to call it, is by including yourself. So one of the things that I do is I write down some notes about how I'm feeling in my nature journal, or I'll write down stuff about the other people that I'm with, because those people are important. And to pretend that nature is somehow separate from us is probably a little mistaken. So using your nature journal as a way to learn about yourself and how you're part of nature as well is going to be a really powerful way to develop some self-awareness. And the journal itself is just a really powerful tool, not just for nature journaling, but for all kinds of journaling. And I've summarized what I see as the 7 benefits of nature journaling, of journaling in general. So here are the 7 things that, after a lot of time, I have narrowed it down. Like, what are all the benefits of journaling? And so one thing that a lot of nature journalers are familiar with is this idea of attention. So when you go out there and you just walk past a flower, you might be like, that's a beautiful flower. But if you start journaling it, if you start writing about it or drawing it, or somehow recording it in your journal, it forces you to really make that attention so much more powerful. You're paying focused attention, because when you're just walking down the trail, your attention is naturally bouncing from one thing to another. But when you take out a piece of paper and start writing or drawing, it forces your brain to slow down and really focus in. So the the attention is really an amazing one. And like John Muir Law says, is that sustained, focused attention is equivalent to love. So by journaling about something, it's a way of showing love for that thing and really caring for that thing. The next one is verbal visual manual. So by using words, images, and drawings, words, images, and numbers all at the same time, you can really accelerate your ability to learn about something. And using different parts of your brain, and even just the fact that your hand is moving, it accelerates your learning. And they've done some really cool studies about this. But just by having your hand moving while you're listening to a lecture like the one right now, even if you're just doodling something that's unrelated to the subject matter, that increases your ability to retain the information. They've done cool studies on this. So just by using your verbal part of your brain, your visual part of your brain, and that manual part, and moving your hands, you're going to learn a lot better. Number 3 is externalizing for objectivity. As humans, we're kind of stuck inside of our own brains, stuck inside of our own perspective. Sometimes getting things on paper makes it easier to be objective about it. You can look at your ideas instead of feeling so attached to them, and it's less personal. And once it's on the paper, you can kind of be a little more critical about it, or share it with other people and say, hey, maybe this idea is not quite right. You can disagree with yourself, and that's a really powerful thing, is when you notice that you've made a mistake on paper, and you go back and you correct that. That's really hard to do if you're only doing that inside your own brain. So you can get a lot more objective about your thoughts and your feelings if you're using a journal. Number 4, externalizing for mental space. So maybe some of you are really good at math and can do pretty good math problems inside your head. You can do some division and multiplication and all that. But it really quickly becomes hard to do more complicated math in your head. So what do? You write it down on paper. When you write something down on paper, or get ideas down on paper, it makes space inside of your head to think at a higher level. You can see all of those things down on paper, and then you can be synthesizing them at the next highest level. So externalizing for mental space is a huge one, and has had huge impacts on human history. If we hadn't invented writing there, or the written word for numbers, or for ideas and words, we would not have been able to come up with a lot of the ideas that we have come up with. Next one is venting. Do you have like a family member or a friend that you always call when something is difficult and you just vent over the phone and or in person and you tell them all of the terrible things and share all of that stuff? Yeah, sure, I've done that. Well, guess what? Your journal is also a place where you can vent. And the cool thing is that your journal won't complain about it. So when I'm nature journaling, for example, and I'm having trouble drawing something, I'll write down like, oh, this hyena face is so hard for me to draw right now. And just by me writing that down on the paper, it gets it out. It lets me move past that faster. If I just left that in my head, it would be bumping around and getting in the way. But writing it down on paper while I'm nature journaling, while I'm dealing with that feeling, it gets it out there and it lets me not take myself too seriously and recover a lot faster from those emotions. All right, chronology and trajectory. Have you ever looked back at your old journals and seen like how you've changed over the years or seen some of the things that you noticed in the past? You can see your progress too, and you can see patterns of how you used to be more fearless with ink maybe, but you didn't do as many landscape ethos in the past, and now you look at that and you say, wow, I was able to do some cool stuff, but you also see how you're making progress. So having this chronology and trajectory, it helps you see the big picture and see your own progress, and you can look back, and it's just a really powerful tool. Last but not least, this is sort of the most boring one, and this is the one that a lot of people give as the reason for journaling, but it provides a record. So for ships captains, for example, they needed a record because someone might want to go back and see like what happened that night when someone died or fell off the ship, or they might need to see like what were the weather conditions when something happened, and that journal, the captain's journal, would provide a record of that. So for us, if we're nature journaling or doing other types of journaling, the record part is, you might look, what time did the California poppies start blooming last year? And if you wrote that down in your nature journal, you have this great record, a powerful way of seeing when something was happening in the past. And over time, you can develop a really cool idea of like how things are changing or maybe staying the same. And you also can figure out, oh, well, they were blooming this time in that canyon, and so it's about that time this year, so I'm going to go back out there, and you'll be much more likely to find them. It's really hard to keep all of that stuff in your memory. So that's the seventh of the seven benefits of journaling. So there's a lot of benefits of journaling, and this is journaling in general, not even just nature journaling. Here's a page where you can see some stuff that I was journaling about myself, definitely doing some venting there and creating some externalizing for objectivity. Okay, now we're going to go into a very specific tactic that I think will give you a lot of benefits. Have you ever noticed yourself dealing with negative self-talk? Have you ever said anything like, my nature journaling sucks, or I can't draw moving animals? Well, here's a little table that you can use. This chart here has 3 columns, and you can use this whenever you notice yourself dealing with negative self-talk. This is also a really powerful tool if someone else that you care for, you notice them using negative self-talk. I work with kids a lot, and on several occasions I've used this strategy and taught this to them so that they can create space for growth instead of limiting their self through negative self-talk. Some people really struggle with negative self-talk, and they have an inner critic that says terrible things to themselves that they would never say to another person. So we're going to look at that first column there. So negative self-talk, go ahead and draw out these 3 columns here. And the first thing you do is, as soon as you say your nature journaling, you're out there with a group of people, and you look around, everybody's pages are looking great, and you look at your own first 2 pages, and your first couple of pages aren't really looking good, and you notice this sentence come up in your head, and it says, my nature journaling sucks. So that's a really limiting and negative thing to say. So what you would do is you would create this table, and then first you would write down that negative thing that you said, my nature journaling sucks. then you would, under room for growth, you would turn that sentence, you would reframe that sentence, and kind of try to be more clear and more specific about it. So you might say, my drawings so far are not meeting my unspoken aesthetic expectations. So you realize that, wow, you're judging yourself and saying your nature journaling sucks, but really it was just that they didn't look as good as your unspoken expectations were kind of hoping for. And just being more specific like that, it makes such a huge difference. Then you might also write down something like this. I might need to practice drawing seals more. Say it was like a nature journaling trip where you were looking at seals and all of your drawings were kind of not meeting your expectation. Instead of saying that and being like, wow, I've never drawn seals and these are kind of challenging for me right now, you might just judge yourself and say, my nature journaling sucks today. So being more specific in that room for growth. And there's certain special, powerful words that you can use in this part. And you could say things such as so far, yet, up until now, still, today, or connected to time. The dangerous words are things such as I can't, I never, I'm not, I always. Those are really defining yourself and not leaving space for room. So, then in the evidence column, you write down things that actually show that your negative self-talk is wrong. So you write down things like, I have already filled 3 pages. I have done my metadata. I have done a drawing of a pelican that is recognizable as a pelican, even though the beak looks like a zucchini. Some other journalers have even used some of my ideas today. So that's all evidence that your nature journaling doesn't suck. And just by going through that exercise could take you maybe 2 minutes. And it really can reshape your brain and allow you to continue to grow instead of getting stuck with that limiting negative self-talk. Another example would be, I can't draw moving animals. So that's using that word can't, right? That doesn't leave room for growth. The simplest thing you could do is in the room for growth column. So you notice yourself say that, you write it down, I can't draw moving animals, under the negative self-talk column. Then under room for growth, you could even just say, I can't draw moving animals yet. Just by adding that one little word into that sentence, it could change your entire life, especially if this were a kid. If you noticed a kid saying this, and you ask them, well, I wonder, what if you practiced a little bit more? Or what if you just put the word yet into there? I can't draw moving animals yet. That opens up a whole world of possibility for them. So then in the room for growth, you could also say things like, drawing moving animals is still challenging for me. I'm having trouble drawing these birds in flight right now. So getting really specific instead of making these our negative, like our inner self-critic likes to use these broad statements such as I can't draw at all. And then the evidence could be I filled a whole page of animal sketches. So that shows that you're working on it. So this is a really powerful tool I want to give to you today. Take this, remember how to create this table. Especially important is just those 2 first columns, negative self-talk and room for growth. And if you learn how to do that, you're going to be able to deal with negative self-talk in the future whenever it comes up. All right. We're going to do a little intentionality practice here because this is one of those really big ones. This is one of those 5 keys to a nature journaling mindset that will allow you to achieve your goals and unlock your potential. So this intentionality is really critical. So get your journal ready. Now you can pause the video here and take a few minutes to write down what are the 5 things you most value in life. Now we're going to use the testing strategy where just write down the 5 things that first come to your mind. That testing strategy where the first thing is probably the right thing. So don't need to make complete sentences. Just write the 5 things you most value in your life, your entire life. Pause the video and take a few minutes to write that down. All right, once you've written down the 5 things you most value in life, pause the video there for a second. Now, what do you want to get out of your nature journaling practice? What is the feeling or the goal, or what do you want to get out of your nature journaling practice? Go ahead and pause the video there for a second and write those things down. All right. So now that you've written down the things that you want to get out of your nature journaling practice, let's go to the next one. What hidden goals might you have? What are some of the things that might be lurking in the background that part of you wants to get from your nature journaling? Something that is unspoken or sort of hidden. Go ahead and give yourself a couple minutes to work on that one. Pause the video and write those ones out. That's probably the hardest one. Okay, so now that you've paused the video and written down some of what your hidden goals might be, now go ahead and either you might circle or write them over again, but which of your life goals, which of your nature journaling goals are in alignment with your life values? Go ahead and give yourself a second to think about this, but which of those 5 things that you value in life are connected or related to some of your nature journaling goals? See if there's any there. Okay, now that you've done that, just as an example, this practice, we're trying to get a little bit more clear about what we're actually nature journaling for and how this is related to like our beliefs and our values in life. So an example, would be, say like next week, I decide I really want a Ferrari. I just, for some reason, I think driving a Ferrari would be really cool. And I start thinking about it a lot and decide like, that's really something I want to do. So now what I might do is I might do this little exercise we just did here. So I could write down, what are the 5 things that I most value in life. Then I could write down, what do I want to get out of owning and driving a Ferrari? And then what are the hidden goals I might have around wanting to own and drive a Ferrari? And then I would look at which of my goals around the Ferrari are in alignment with my life, my life values, the things that I value in life. And if I see that, my values in life are spending time in nature, spending time with my family, love and beauty. If those things are my value, and maybe like truth or justice or something like that. And then I look at my, what do I want to get out of driving a Ferrari? And maybe it's like, I want to look cool, or I want to drive fast and have fun, or I want people to take me seriously or something like that. Well, it would be really hard for me to line those up with any of my life values. So no judgment here. If you drive a Ferrari, I'm not saying anything bad about driving Ferraris, but this is just a little practice of how we can see, how things in our life actually line up with what we believe and what we care about. So that's just a little ways to build up your intentionality. So what is that? What are we looking at here? That's the vacuum. And guess what? Learning and growth do not happen inside of there. Learning and growth do not happen inside of a vacuum. So of the 5 things that can really affect your nature journaling mindset and growth, and one of them is feedback loops. So feedback loops are anything where there's you're not just inside of a vacuum. So the cool thing about nature journaling is that we already have some feedback loops built in. So when you're writing down what you see or drawing what you see, that is a way of getting feedback. You're looking at the drawing and then looking at the thing in life, and that drawing creates this feedback loop where the images and information is coming into your brain, and then it has to go through your hand and out onto the paper, and then you see it on the paper again. Another cool feedback loop that John Muir Laws often teaches is to verbalize what you see. So even if you're by yourself and you're birding and you see a bird fly up into a tree, instead of just staring at it harder, you verbalize what you see. Oh, I see red eyes and lots of black around the face, and the beak is kind of pointy, but not too long, and there's some little white spots in the wings. By doing that, you're creating a feedback loop, and just by verbalizing it's going out of your mouth, and it's engaging more parts of your brain, and you end up learning a lot faster and remembering a lot more. Also, drawing from life or nature journaling from the real world is an amazing feedback loop, because if you're drawing a bird, that bird is going to move and it's going to give you real-time feedback. You can look at your drawing, but when you look back up at that bird, you will see new things, and it's providing feedback. Instead of, if you're just drawing from your imagination, you could draw any kind of bird you want and you have nothing to check it against. So when I was a kid, I used to draw from my imagination all the time, and there was probably a period of 5 years where I only drew from my imagination, and I had some interesting drawings, but there was so little feedback that the learning was stagnant. I just kept drawing the same dragons over and over and over again. But when you're out there in the real world, that bird is going to move. That bird doesn't care about your feelings. That bird is going to do what it wants to do and give you feedback, and you have to just try to draw what you see, and that's just going to accelerate your learning so much. Another time to get feedback is the way that we usually think about feedback is nature journaling with other people. So spending time with other people, you can learn so much more. And whether they give you direct feedback or not, sharing and doing a little journal shares is a great way to learn, and that feedback will accelerate your learning so much. Now, I know getting feedback is one of the scariest things for a lot of people. Some people are even afraid to post stuff online on because they're afraid of what other people will think. That's sort of based in our outcome dependence, and I know it can be really rough, but I recommend just trying to put your stuff out there, and be open to feedback if you can. We'll talk more about that. All right, next of the 5 things that can really help your mindset. This one I call fuel. So what are the things that motivate you for nature journaling? And they've done some really interesting studies on workplace motivation and in a lot of office and corporate settings. And what they found is that humans really need to see progress. So it's important to see that you're improving. And a lot of times our brains are so focused on seeing negative things that we don't see the positive things. One strategy is to celebrate small wins. So writing things down and writing and celebrating when you achieve something. So you can schedule time to look over your old journals, or you can schedule a time like at the end of filling up a journal. Like once you fill that sketchbook up, you should sit down and celebrate that. That's an achievement. And by seeing the progress and celebrating these small wins, you can give yourself more fuel and motivate yourself. So routine is sounds really boring, but it's super important. A lot of people have this idea like, oh, if I were only more self-disciplined, I would get more nature journaling done. And they wish they could like wake up at 5 and go birding and go nature journaling in the snow or whatever. And self-discipline is not an easy thing, and it's a limited resource. So instead, what you can do is if you make something into a routine, it doesn't use your self-discipline. If it's a habit instead of like a choice, then it's way easier to do. And once you get in the habit of going somewhere every month to nature journal with a group of people, it's going to be so much easier to keep that up. So once it becomes a routine, it's no longer going to take self-discipline. The other thing that I like to do for routine is to piggyback it. So if you already drink coffee every single morning, well, what do you do while you're drinking your coffee? It might take you 5 minutes to drink coffee. Do you think you could nature journal or do a little sketch or a little journal entry during that time? Well, you would be piggybacking your nature journaling habit on a habit you already have. What habits do you have? If you have like a cocktail hour or a high tea in the afternoon, or a certain time of day that you normally sit and do something, like maybe you could connect nature journaling to that. And that way you can build a routine that doesn't require self-discipline and keeps you in the practice and keeps you motivated. Community. This is a huge one because we're social animals, and it's way easier to get motivated by a community than by yourself. So a community can provide like accountability, feedback, motivation, fun, and you can also get a lot of motivation by helping other people who are even newer than you are. So even if you're pretty new at nature journaling, maybe there's a friend of yours that you could get into it. And by helping them, that will give you a lot of motivation. So those are some ways that community and other people, like having just a buddy that you go nature journaling with, will really help you keep up your nature journaling practice. All right, last of all for this one is know what your juice is. So this is a term that I came up with to describe like what is the part of nature journaling that just gets you most pumped up? Like what is the thing that even if you were really tired, you would get excited about? And this could be either like a technique or it could be a certain subject matter or a certain place, and just know what that is. And I break it down into your juice, which is the one that gives you energy. Even you could even do it when you're tired. Then your bread and butter is sort of like your staple. Like you could do this one all day long, and you're so used to it, you've done it so many times that it's really sort of like the bread and butter of your nature journaling practice. And then last is your growth edge. Your growth edge is those things in nature journaling that are sort of hard for you, like maybe using more numbers and quantifying things, or doing maps, or even using words. Some people draw more, or some people, so what is your growth edge? Maybe drawing animals, maybe you've been focusing so much on plants. So knowing what those three are, your juice, your bread and butter, and your growth edge, and having some strategies and exercises for each up your sleeve anytime you go nature journaling. And then have realistic expectations around these. So if you go nature journaling someday that you're already really tired, do you think that's going to be the best time to practice your growth edge? Oh, I'm super tired after work. I'm going to go try practicing like mathematical quantification in my nature journaling, or drawing those animals that I always struggle with. That's probably not a realistic expectation. And when you're really tired after work, you should probably focus on nature journaling your bread and butter, or focusing on your juice. Maybe just for 15 minutes of like a juicy subject that gives you the most energy would be a realistic expectation. So just kind of understanding that there's a spectrum here with your nature journaling, and that some of those things are really going to give you energy, and some of them take a lot more energy. Now, if you can figure out those three things and all of those aspects of fuel, you're guaranteed to blast off in your nature journaling. So I hope you use these and remember them. Focusing on practice. People have been saying this since thousands of years ago. Focus on the practice, not on the product. And most of us understand these ideas to some degree or another, but a lot of times we really do focus on the product. So remember when we looked before at how many of our creative issues are traced back to outcome dependence? So that is one of the reasons why focusing on the practice is so liberating. This is the central paradox, is that sometimes wanting to be good at something can actually get in the way of getting better. If you have trouble starting something, or if you're freezing up and getting too precious about the page, or leaving lots of blank pages, these are all different things that can be caused by focusing on the product instead of the practice. So number one, de-romanticize the work. Don't focus on inspiration or wait for the muse. It really is liberating if you just take the hard work model and pretend like it's sort of like a day job. Now I know a lot of us don't want our nature journaling to be work or be like a day job, but the thing is if you just show up and repeatedly practice, you're going to get better. But if you wear a beret and sit around waiting for the muse to strike, and only nature journal when you're inspired, you're not going to nature journal very much, and part of your brain is just going to use that as an excuse to procrastinate. All right, quantity over quality, along the same lines as the last one. Many of you might know of this anecdote about a pottery class, and in the pottery class, the teacher said, "All right, students, this semester, I'm going to divide you into two groups. One group is going to get graded purely on one pot. They can spend the whole semester trying to make the most beautiful pot possible, and I will grade you on how beautiful that pot is. Then, the second half of the class, you over there, all of you, you're going to try to make as many pots as possible, and I will grade you on how many you can actually make. How many pots can you make in this semester, and I'll grade you on that." Well, guess what happened? Guess what happened at the end of the semester when all those pots were looked at? Which group had the most beautiful pots? Was it the group that spent all semester trying to make the most beautiful pot? Or was it the group that spent the whole semester making as many pots as possible? Well, the irony, and this is the deep, deep irony of this story, is that the people who weren't even thinking about making a beautiful pot, but were trying to make 100, 150, 300 pots in the semester, they ended up with the most beautiful pots because they were so focused on the quantity and on the practice that they ended up getting better over that time. So this is just an amazing, amazing paradox about what we do. And if you focus on quantity and get those pencil miles in, your quality is going to get better on its own. All right. So input versus outcome. Along the similar lines of quality versus quantity, if you're outcome dependent and you just really want to get that beautiful page at the end of the day, that's actually going to mess you up. But if you focus on the input and say, I'm just going to nature journal for an hour, or I'm going to fill 10 nature journaling pages, and you just focus on the input, like the input being how much time you put into it, how many pages, instead of the outcome of like what the quality of the product is going to be, that will liberate you a lot. Growth mindset. So much of what we have been talking about today is about the growth mindset. So this concept comes from Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist that did a bunch of research on the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. In the growth mindset, the idea is that people have potential. We don't know what that potential is, and sure, some people have differences that they're born with, but we don't really know how much that person can learn at a new skill, and we're all able to learn and develop skills. The fixed mindset, on the other hand, says that we're born with a certain amount of talent for golf or for illustration, and that's pretty much where we're going to stay. So in nature journaling, we really take up this idea of the growth mindset. Talent is a bad word, so be careful how you use that word talent. And the people who are considered like good natural artists are hurt by this mindset, the fixed mindset, and the people who are considered bad artists or not artists are also hurt by this fixed mindset. So we really need to embrace the growth mindset. Number 5, learning is fun. It's fun. It's curiosity, question asking, doing I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. Don't take yourself too seriously while you're nature journaling. It's supposed to be fun. And I'm telling you, if you can train yourself to enjoy the practice and give yourself permission to just fill pages, that would be a real superpower. And your nature journaling mindset would be so strong if you could learn how to focus on practice. It's such an important aspect. All right, so that's the 5th of the keys, the 5 panaceas to the nature journaling mindset. I went through all of them, and so now it's time for the pop quiz. So go ahead and take some time to answer these 3 questions here. This is your test, and you might have this written down in your journal, but go ahead and see if you can remember it from your head. Go ahead and draw that negative self-talk chart with the 3 columns and use it on something that your internal critic has said. What have you noticed, some negative self-talk that you've had? Go ahead and pause the video and draw that negative self-talk chart and use it on something that some negative self-talk that you have had. All right, once you've done that chart, now make sure you do this practice, all right? I know you can get away with it because this is just a video, but go ahead and give yourself a moment and actually pause the video and do these, because this is how you're going to get better. All right, next, write down a couple of your core life values and how your nature journaling intentions align with them. Now, I know you did this once before, but give yourself a minute here, pause the video, and see what you come up with the second time. Write down, 3 to 5 core life values, and then which of your nature journaling intentions align up with those. Give yourself a minute or two and write those down. Okay, now that you've done that, the final question of the pop quiz is, what is one uncomfortable type of feedback you are going to practice leaning into? So, are you afraid to draw live moving animals? Or have you been hesitant to ask your teacher for feedback, or post some photos of your nature journal pages online and see what other people think? Well, maybe you should. Maybe that's something you could practice leaning into. So go ahead and write those down here. And what kind of learning? What might you get on the other side of that feedback? Because a lot of times the best things in life are on the other side of something we're afraid of. So what is that one uncomfortable type of feedback that you're going to practice leaning into, and what might you learn on the other side of it? So give yourself a couple minutes to write that down. All right, congratulations. You did the pop quiz and you sat through, and even though this journey is not completely over, you have already come a long way. We went through some difficult stuff. This is not an easy subject matter to talk about. You got some help, and you've gotten much closer to your goals. So, you did a great job. I commend you for sticking through on this whole presentation. And, we did a lot of things to really build up some of your mindset skills, your intentionality, your self awareness. And I really wanted to share this with you because I think of all the things that I could share with you and give to you, of all the like watercolor techniques or specific natural history things that I could teach you about, like really this mindset is so important. This can make the biggest difference. So, I commend you for taking this challenge and coming out here and keep up the good work, and you can really achieve a lot and do a lot better in your nature journaling and in life if you develop some of these mindset techniques.